Let me tell you a story about a man who dissolved his victims into steel drums. His name is Santiago Mesa Lopez, who was motivated through many hardships with his family. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Criminate. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let's get started. One of the most incredible stories took place in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico at the beginning of 2009. The entire country was undergoing a significant change, as a new operational mode was becoming known through the media. Although it was a practice that had existed for some time, it was a person who gave a face to this activity. His name was Santiago Mesa Lopez, 45 years old, alias El Chongo, originally from Guamchil, Sinaloa. After his capture, he confirmed that the number of victims he made disappear was at least 300 people, which earned him the nickname El Pozolero. Pozole is a traditional Mexican broth made from corn kernels, often served with chicken or pork. Pozolero is the term for the cook of this dish. But in organized crime, a pozolero is someone who dissolves bodies to make them disappear. Those who knew him describe him as a reserved man of few words, a worker who was a bricklayer by trade, and who had a wife and children and a normal family. He met his wife Irma in childhood in the city of Guamchil, Sinaloa. She was 9 years old and he was 11. They lived in the same neighborhood, where they experienced many hardships. It was a place where many people worked to find red clay to make and sell bricks. Over time, he learned this trade and soon became a bricklayer. One day, he was called to work on a ranch where his main job was to take care of the place, helping with animal care and necessary maintenance work. The chronology of the crime began on a ranch called La Galera, located in the Ejido de Maclovio, Rojas in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. It was previously a cockfighting breeding ground situated on Sigua Street on top of a steep hill, where the rural roads are present in a place that would later become known for one of the stories and realities lived in Mexico, where thousands of bones have been found. The story dates back to 1996, when Santiago Mesa was working for the Aureliano Felix organization, taking care of horses and doing masonry work. One day, the leaders of the organization invited him to witness an experiment. As he walked towards the location, he was able to see a metal barrel where minutes later, it was filled with liters and liters of water along with other substances. They asked Santiago Mesa to throw in a beef leg, which had to be left to rest for 2 hours. At intervals, he had to stir the substance. As he did this, he noticed that the meat and bone were slowly dissolving. Up to that point, it was the only thing they allowed him to see, without saying anything more. He was merely a witness to this experiment, which had been brought by to people from Israel who specialized in this activity. But only a few months later, they requested his presence again. Perhaps they told Santiago that they were going to experiment with human flesh and that they were going to send some young people to help him. The first body was dissolved one night in 1996 in a barrel with 200 liters of water. After the body was thrown inside, they lit a gas burner and left it on all night. The next day, when they checked the barrel, they noticed that the water had become very frothy. Then, they put the lid on and loaded it onto a truck to be dumped in a ravine. Only 3 months later did they ask him to do the same thing again. Although he briefly mentioned that he no longer wanted to do it, they soon offered him $600 a week. After thinking about it for days, he told his wife, "I prefer my job over you starving." From then on, La Galera would become his operations center, where they installed a drainage system to dispose of the dissolved body parts. They used metal barrels, one on top of the other, to add 200 liters of water. They then poured into sacks of caustic soda and other chemicals. Afterward, they would throw in the body, without clothes, heat it for 8 hours, and leave it for around 15 hours so that the substances did their job. Afterward, they would take the barrels and pour them out through the drainage system. The remains that did not disintegrate, such as teeth, nails, and some bones, were burned and buried on the same property. They also used hot water to clean the drainage, as some remains, or pozole as they called it, would stick. The barrels were cleaned and stored in a warehouse, and that's how he completed his work. Neighbors mentioned that at night, trucks and water tankers would arrive at the place. When neighbors asked Santiago Mesa about the activities he was involved in at the location, he would simply nod and say they were making gelatin. You might be wondering about the smell. It was noticeable, but often confused with the odor from the cockfighting breeding ground. Goats were located just a few meters away, so his activities did not raise the slightest suspicion, or at least the community preferred not to question it further. The arrest occurred after. On January 22, 2019, Army personnel received a tip-off about a house in the Colonia Ba H6. Armed men had been partying for days. The military convoy intercepted the location, and many people fled to the beach. Santiago Mesa was there, and due to his condition being under the influence of alcohol and some substances, he could not escape. The soldier subdued him with his hands behind his neck on the sand. He mentioned that he did not know who they were messing with, as he was the pozolero for Teo. After interrogating him and obtaining information, they took him to the ranch in the Ejido de Hoyos de Agua. They transported him covered with a blanket. Upon arrival, the military got out of the truck and took him to the center of the property, ordering him to show them how he disposed of the bodies. The ranch is a small brick building with 2-meter-high walls. Inside, there are holes dug in the ground, both industrial with liquid residues, and a wooden table with various work instruments such as leather gloves, knives, containers, and masonry spoons. Once there, he was interrogated by many people around him who witnessed such macabre confessions. On January 23, 2009, Santiago Mesa appeared on television with his hands clasped behind his neck, looking down, and with some bruises on his face. When asked how many people he had disposed of, he mentioned 300, affirming that he did not take their lives. His sole task was to make them disappear and throw the remains into the pits. This activity had been ongoing for about 10 years. From that point on, the press spread the news, and soon Santiago Mesa was known nationally as El Pozolero. The modus operandi was as follows. Each week, he received a call from his boss at the time, El Teo, a lieutenant in an organization, who would deliver the bodies that needed to be disposed of. They would agree on the day and time of delivery and meet at a designated location. This is where the convoy would turn on the hazard lights of a vehicle, signaling that the bodies to be disposed of were in that vehicle. Once they approached, the delivery was made, and he would drive to his operations center, where, in collaboration with 2 people, prepared the barrels with water and caustic soda to dissolve the bodies, always taking necessary precautions with protective gear such as special gloves and gas masks. The previously mentioned process was then carried out to leave no visible traces. When the army raided El Pozolero's kitchen, 10 bodies were in the process of decomposition inside barrels, along with 3 freshly dug pits. The identities of those who might be in the pits are unknown and likely never to be known due to the way the bodies were dissolved, which prevents DNA testing. When the authorities showed him photos of some missing persons, he said he did not recognize any of them, insisting that he was just doing his job. He mentioned that whenever he worked with the bodies, he did not see their faces, as they all wore gray plastic adhesive tape masks. When they were put into the barrels, only the tape was cut from the back of the neck, not completely removed. In addition to La Galera, it is known that there were 5 other ranches, one in Hoyos de Agua and another in Loma Bonita, where bodies were also dissolved. Currently, at La Galera, Santiago Mesa's operations center, and the other ranches, 15,000 liters of organic emulsion, 350 kilograms of bones, and more than 6,000 teeth have been found. It is estimated that the number of his victims amounts to 1,200 bodies. So far, authorities have not been able to gather enough evidence they convicted him on other charges, such as kidnapping, although he is held at the Almoloya de Juarez prison in the state of Mexico, where he completed elementary school and he learned to write by taking painting classes, and sometimes mentions that he misses working as a bricklayer. I hope you enjoyed this video and had an excellent day. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and until next time.